I currently can't seem to speak.
This is Halloween, 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 Halloween.
Hey there ladies and germs, I need a haircut and welcome back to my channel. My name is Lilith if you've never been here before, and if you have, hey, nice to see you, you look great. Due to unfortunate circumstances, I am awake. I'm freshly out of the shower, which is why I look like a drowned rat, but you're welcome. I came to hang out with you anyway because I love you and I think you're great. Today we're gonna do like a mini story time idea that I had while I was just taking a shower. And it's kind of a thing where I tell like stories that aren't good enough to be full videos. So I just tell like a couple per video. I got the idea from The Gabby Show and Tana Mojo. So credit to them, go check out their channels. They're way more popular than me. You obviously have to know who they are if you know who I am, because I'm dirt and they're not dirt. So all of these stories today have kind of like a theme, I guess. They're like, I guess you could say guys that I dated before I came out, or guys that I was like sort of seeing before I came out. For those of you who don't know, I came out of the closet as a lesbian about a week before I turned 17, and these are all guys that I dated or started to date before I came out. And I use the word dating so loosely because like we never kissed. Most of them never really went on dates with me. It was more like, oh, we lunched together, so you're my boyfriend. Like that was kind of how that worked. Before we get into the story, please remember to click subscribe and turn on the notifications for my channel. The notifications are doing something weird on YouTube lately, so if you turn on the notifications, make sure you hit always instead of just sometimes. And please follow me on my social media listed in the description. I have a Tumblr, a Twitter, an Instagram, and a Musical.ly, but I am on my Instagram and my Twitter the most often. My Tumblr and my Musical.ly are just for when I'm feeling artsy. So please follow me on the description listed in the description below, and let's get into the stories. This first story is about a boy who was my boyfriend in the 8th grade. And by boyfriend, I mean he was my boyfriend for a literal day when I was 13 years old. We are gonna call him Jesse to protect his identity and to keep me from getting murdered. You'll understand why I'm thinking I'm gonna get murdered after I tell you the story. Now that I've said Jesse, I have the song Jesse's Girl stuck in my head, like the original version. You know, I love that version. The reason that I knew Jesse was in my grade at my middle school, and we had a lot of classes together. And I'm pretty sure it was almost all of our classes. And for a while, he was dating my best friend, who we're gonna call Bethany. Bethany is a whole nother story in herself. But he was dating, and by dating, I mean they had classes together and ate lunch together and held hands in the hallway kind of dating for a couple of weeks. That's pretty much about as long as a relationship got in my middle school. I had convinced myself that I really, really wanted to date Jesse. Even though I was not physically attracted to Jesse. Jesse did not often shower. Jesse was not that cool. Jesse was just kind of weird. But when Jesse and I would talk in class, Jesse seemed really nice. And I think the main reason that I wanted to date Jesse was because I had a really, really big crush on Bethany. Bethany had been my friend since like 7th grade, and she was really tall and pretty, and we spent all of our time together in school, and I couldn't date Bethany. And so I thought my next best thing was I wanted to date the boy who was dating Bethany. So for the entire time that Jesse was dating Bethany, I had a huge crush on him, when really it was just my gay brain didn't realize I was actually gay, and I just wanted to be closer to Bethany by dating someone that Bethany had dated. So when Bethany told me to give Jesse a piece of paper in the middle of science class, letting him know that she was breaking up with him, I was both excited and slightly devastated, because I didn't know what to do. I mean, how do you be the person that hands a note to somebody that lets them know, hey, by the way, my friend is breaking up with you because she doesn't like you anymore? Bethany was very hot and cold with people that she dated. She dated a couple different guys when we were in middle school, and she actually dated one of my close friends who was a girl, and that again is a whole nother story that I promise is more interesting than this. But she just kind of was always hot and cold with people, so it wasn't really surprising to me that she was only dumping him after like 2 or 3 weeks. On the plus side of the fact that I'm pretty sure she only dated him to make somebody else jealous. So being the person that I am, who doesn't know how to say no, especially to someone that I like or that I'm friends with, I took the note to Jesse. Jesse was not particularly upset about the situation, and he told me that it was because he already had a crush on somebody else. Big red flag. Just big red flag. So later on that day, I end up mentioning to Bethany that I had a crush on Jesse, even though looking back at it, I really did not at all, and he was really creepy. And she told me to completely go for it, that she was already over him and on to somebody else, and that if I wanted to date Jesse, I could date Jesse. So I went for the leap and bound of it, and I wrote out a note in class. When we were in science class the next day, I wrote out a note that said, hey, do you like me and want to be my boyfriend? And then a circle yes or no situation, because I was stupid. And I remember I had the note in my binder, and then suddenly about 5 minutes before I was planning on passing it to him, which would be like the middle of class, Jesse passes me a note that's basically the exact same thing that I was going to ask him about if I wanted to be his girlfriend. Instead of answering, I opened up my note that had the exact same thing written on it, very Taylor Swift You Belong With Me style, and I just held it up for him to see. And so it was kind of decided in that moment, probably on like a random Wednesday, that I was his girlfriend and he was my boyfriend. So we exchanged numbers that day, and I got really freaked out almost immediately when class was over. It seemed to have not occurred to me that if he was my boyfriend, I was going to have to like physically touch him. And I know that sounds really bad, but in my head, somehow it would be more about Bethany than it was about Jesse. And it's like it suddenly occurred to me, because I was stupid and 13 and had no brain, that I wasn't going to be kissing Bethany. I wasn't going to be holding hands with Bethany. I was going to be doing these things with this creepy guy that I did not find attractive at all. So I kind of like freaked out when he wanted to hold my hand that day. But he kind of went really overboard, because we were dating for probably 4 hours by the time that school was finally over. And he called me.
James, and today, guys, we're going to do another try Dr. Lamar. This time, meme edition.
Okay. I have a ghost in my house. These remotes were nowhere near me, and the ghost just turned the TV on to a Daz Games video. Go follow Daz if you don't already follow him. Great content, but I literally wasn't touching the remote, and it just turned on. So thanks, Paul. Anyway, so what was I saying? So he had already been going a little bit overboard during the school day, where he just kept over complimenting me in like this really creepy way. And he kept like getting really close to me, and he clearly never showered in his life. And then he called me that day after school, and even though we'd only been dating for like 5 or 6 hours at this point, he was talking about what our wedding was going to be like and what we were going to name our children. And then he like started getting like really angry about like something stupid. I can't remember what it was, but he was like, he claimed he was like chopping wood while he was on the phone with me, and he kept like shouting and chopping this wood and being like weirdly violent and creepy. Well, me being a 13-year-old with no backbone who clearly hadn't known what I was getting myself into, instantly decided that night before I went to bed I was going to break up with Jesse the next day. So I called Bethany with a game plan, trying to figure out how to break up with him. And because Bethany and I were both 13 and stupid and didn't understand human feelings or how to use our brains, we decided I was going to break up with Jesse in a note, just like she had literally like 2 days prior. Yes, I'm a jerk. Feel free to sound off in the comments below. So I get to school the next day, and he has this weird like fake gumball ring. Like it's still in the little gumball, like the plastic like container thing. And he hands it to me, and there's a piece of paper rolled up in it, and it's his phone number. And I'm like, I already have your phone number. You literally called me yesterday. And he was like, oh, I thought it would be romantic. And was like mad that I wouldn't wear the ring, even though the ring didn't fit it didn't fit me at all. Like it was like, and I always had like big fat fingers, and he was mad I wouldn't wear it. And I'm like, I can't physically wear it. It won't go on. And he got angry that I wasn't trying to get it on, even though it either could have broken the ring or cut my skin, because it was really thin metal. And so he got really mad about this. Well, when we got to science class, like an hour or two later, I like a little took the paper and chucked it onto his desk and then just sat down. And the way that our science desks were set up is it was like the table, like the big black tables that were for like 2 people, where the chairs weren't actually attached, like all the regular desks. And his table was here and he was alone, and my table was here and I was alone. Well, he got really angry, and I could see him out of the corner of my eye getting really violent. And I don't know if this was because this was the second time this week that he had been dumped, or if this was because he had liked me more than he had liked Bethany. I don't know what it was. But all of a sudden, Jesse just lost his mind. Like, he was just like sitting there like shaking and looking crazy. And then the teacher left for whatever reason. And I'm not kidding when I say the second she left, he started throwing shit at me. Like, he stood up from his desk and started taking his big, heavy textbooks and throwing them at me, and picking up books out of his book bag and throwing them at me. And he opened up his like stupid little 5-year-old pencil case and started throwing pencils at me. And eventually he threw like 2 pairs of scissors at me. And I remember it was at this point that Bethany, who was in the back of the room, freaked out and ran up. No one else helped me because like somehow every other kid that was in this class, they were all the jerks, they were all the jocks, they were all the preps, they were all the popular kids. They didn't care that this crazy guy was throwing scissors at a girl. Like, they just didn't care. And so Bethany runs up to the front of the classroom and tries to stop him and is standing in the way. And so he starts also picking it up off the ground and starts throwing it at both of us and yelling at us and calling us names. Well, then eventually, by the time that he had stopped, that was when the teacher came back in. And we were both just standing there. And I don't remember how, but somehow we got in trouble for it. Like, she made us pick up his stuff and put it back on his desk. I just really don't remember. Like, I'm upset to this day. And I've talked to Bethany since then, and she doesn't remember either. She just remembers us getting in trouble. Jesse actually ended up stalking me for the rest of 8th grade, which was really hard for me. Not just because I had never, like, been stalked before, but because 8th grade was a really intense year in my life. It was when I started to realize my sexuality. I lost and gained a lot of friends. It was the last year that I had with all of my friends because I moved the next year. My depression developed that year. And just a lot of crazy stuff that I've never really talked about online happened to me in the year that I was in 8th grade. And to add to it, he was following me around the halls. He would call me and hang up, or he would call and just sit silently on the phone. He would stare at me during class, and we had like all but one class together that year. And he would stare at me all the time. He would follow me out of the building at the end of the day when we were going to our cars. It was just very odd and uncomfortable. And eventually I had to tell this school counselor that I was really close with what had happened. And she ended up nipping it in the bud, and he didn't follow me around the rest of the year. But I have seen him on social media since then because one of his old friends started dating one of my old friends from middle school who I was still friends with on Facebook. And he's even creepier now than he used to be. This next guy we're gonna call James. James was the last boy that I ever dated. I use the term dated loosely because we went on a couple of dates, but we were never official. There was a 4-month period of James in my life the year that I was 16. This would have been the same year that the video from my reacting to my first YouTube video was from. The year when I had the long red hair and the crappy makeup while I was in high school, that's the year this was happening. It would have actually been during this time period, like this summer. So basically, I met James on this website called My Yearbook. As you guessed it, the site where I also met my ex-girlfriend, Betty. A video that you can find, which was, I think, my first story time ever, where it was my first date with a girl, which was actually more my first kiss with a girl. Yes, I know you're still waiting on the second half of that story. I will get to that at some point, I swear. I met James on My Yearbook, and I remember thinking that he was really cool. He was in a band, and he was a little bit older than me. When I was 16, he was like 19, and he liked Doctor Who. And when we were messaging each other on My Yearbook, he seemed really cool and really nice. So we got to know each other. We exchanged phone numbers. We would Skype sometimes. And I remember he had a really weirdly unhealthy obsession with the Tremor movies. He was overly obsessed with his like polka band. He was a lot nicer over like text than he was when talking to him. It was like he was just a wall and he just did not care. Well, at the time that I was 16, I was really, really desperate for a boyfriend because I had kind of realized that I was gay, and I was going through this period of being really freaked out by it, and I didn't personally accept it yet, and I was really worried. So I told myself that if I could get a boyfriend, I could change. And that obviously didn't work because I'm here just, you know, gaying it up. But I was convinced I had to have a boyfriend or else I was just gonna be proving myself right that I really was gay. And I told myself if I could get a boyfriend that I wasn't gay. So I remember I decided I have to date James. He is my last hope. So eventually, after like, I want to say a month and a half, I convinced James to come out on a date with me. Well, our date was at the mall where I live. There's actually 3 malls where I live, but like the one that's closest to me was where we were. And it was like a fairly normal date, but clearly I was a lot more into it than he was. And by into it, I mean like I was hoping that it would work because I really, really needed it to work. And he clearly was so freaked out by that. And I kept trying to be like affectionate with him and it just wasn't working out. Well, we keep talking for like another 2 months and he just is dragging it along. Like he's acting like I'm his girlfriend, but he won't treat me like his girlfriend, if that makes sense. Like he'll talk to me like I'm his girlfriend, but he won't label me as his girlfriend. He won't go public with me. He won't tell his friends about me. And it's just really, really weird. Well, we hadn't seen each other in like 2 months. And then finally he decides he wants to take me out on another date. And by this time it is my birthday. So it is September of 2012. It was over the summer that I had met him and the first date occurred. Well, for my birthday, my former best friend blew me off. And so he said that for my birthday, he would go with me to see Finding Nemo. Finding Nemo had already been out, but they were like replaying it for whatever reason at my local movie theater. So he said that he would take me. Well, come my actual birthday, already bitter because my best friend blew me off, I am waiting and waiting and waiting at this movie theater for this punk. And it gets to the point where I'm like calling my mother on my cell phone and I'm like, he's just not here. Like the movie starts in like 5 minutes and I'd already been there for like an hour. He's not answering my calls, he's not answering my texts, and I'm just standing in the arcade crying because it's my 17th birthday and it actually wasn't even like my actual like birthday. My actual birthday that year, I want to say, was on like a weekday or something. And so we were hanging out a couple of days before my birthday. And like me and my best friend were supposed to hang out that weekend and she blew me off. So I went to the movies with him and I knew I was going to have to spend my actual birthday just like alone. So this was all I had. And I remember like it wasn't even actually my birthday yet and it already sucked. So then he finally shows up to the movie theater, runs in the door, surprised he didn't break it, doesn't explain to me why he was late, does not say anything, grabs me by the wrist and yanks me and is like, come on, we're gonna be late, as if it was my fault, and yanks me towards the ticket line. Well, we're standing in line, next person in, and he had said something about, I'm gonna buy for you, I'm gonna buy for you, I'm gonna buy both of our tickets because it's gonna be your birthday, we're doing this for your birthday, I'm gonna buy both of our tickets. And I'm like, okay, cool. I did not have a job. I could only really afford like my ticket if I had to. The rest of my money was going towards other stuff. A guy, I will never forget this man's face. He walked into the door, somehow immediately found James, taps him on the shoulder and says, man, you hit my car in the parking lot with your big old truck. And I'm just like, of course he did. Of course he did. He was already late, yanked me, and now, of course, he hit somebody in the parking lot. And so James went with this man, promised he would be back before we had to get up to the front. What did he do? Not come back in time. I had to buy both of our tickets. He had made such a big deal out of wanting to buy both of our tickets because he knew I didn't have a job and that this was for my birthday. And so he decided he was just going to be in the parking lot for 800 years and I had to pay for both of our tickets when I did not have a job. I don't mind buying for other people sometimes. I buy stuff for my friend all the time. I buy stuff for my cousin. I buy stuff for my mom and my brother. I don't mind that. But don't tell me 1,000 times, I'm going to be on time. I'm going to buy your tickets. We're going to have a great time for your birthday. And then do none of those things. So I get peeved and I buy both of the tickets and I'm standing there waiting for, I'm not even kidding, 20 minutes. 20 minutes goes by, he runs in, does not question the fact that I bought both of our tickets, just sees the ticket stubs in my hand, again grabs the same wrist and races to the theater that is playing Finding Nemo. And I'm peeved. Just peeved. The entire movie, he won't talk to me, he won't look at me, doesn't acknowledge my existence. As soon as the movie is over, I'm just done. I'm done. I had to pay for this man's ticket. He hit a car in the parking lot. He was late. He has yanked me twice and won't really acknowledge me. He doesn't acknowledge me until we get outside. And then as soon as we get outside, he decides this is a great time to start telling racist jokes. I don't tolerate any kind of discrimination. I do not tolerate ageism or racism or homophobia or sexism, anything where you decide that it's a great idea to discriminate against somebody just for no real reason. That's when I'm not okay. This grown man decides to start telling me racist jokes after we just saw a Disney movie. What about Pixar says racism? I don't get it. So I was royally cheesed. And he didn't understand why I wasn't having a good time. I was like not talking to him. Well, eventually we ended up having a falling out like right after that, where he constantly was still just being a jerk all the time. And he's like, you know what? I really haven't, you know, tried hard enough with you. You deserve to have me try harder. Even though he had spent like the entire time since the second date just like not understanding why I didn't have a good time, being a jerk. And a couple weeks later, he was like, you know, I should have done better for you. I want you to talk to me again. I want to do better. And I'm like, no, you're a crazy racist. Go away. He was the last guy I ever dated. And I know that not every guy is a crazy racist. I know there are a lot of men in the world who will show up on time for dates. There are a lot of men who will pay. There are a lot of men who won't yank you. I know that. I know a lot of great guys. One of my best friends in high school was a guy. I get along really well with all my friends' boyfriends. My dad's a great guy. My brother's a great guy. But this guy specifically, I had chosen as like my last shot for dating boys, and I knew immediately that I was like, no, it's never gonna work. He could have been a perfect gentleman and I never would have liked him because he was not a girl. So he was the last boy that I ever got involved with, and I started dating chicks exclusively after that. This last story, very short tidbit. The first boy that I ever dated, I remember he was my little nerdy best friend. He had like a bowl haircut. He was like a foot shorter than me, and we're gonna call him David. David was a very nice kid, but he was extremely oblivious and would do anything that his ex-girlfriend told him to because he was like madly in love with her, even though we were like 12, 13. Well, he dated one of my best friends who we're gonna call Jessica. Jessica was not a great person. Well, Jessica knew that I had a crush on him and decided to date him anyway. She had this way of making me feel like I was not allowed to be mad at her for it. But the only reason that David dated her was because David's ex-girlfriend told him, date Jessica. Date Jessica. I want you to date Jessica. You'll make me happy if you date Jessica. Because Jessica begged her. And so he dated Jessica for like 2 weeks and then broke up with her, flat out saying that he broke up with her because he did not like her. He only dated her because his ex-girlfriend asked him to, blah, blah, blah. And I just remember thinking that was so karmically funny. And then that was our 6th grade year, and then in 7th grade, it was like 8 months later or something, I still had a huge crush on him. He was my best friend, and I just thought that he was just like the sun, the moon, and the earth. Like, he was just so cute. And now that I look back at it, I think it's kind of because he looked like a girl. Like, I feel like that's what it was. And so I remember we were sitting on a tire in the back of our school, like a lot almost, and I asked him to be my boyfriend. He was like, yeah, sure, we can give this a go, after I had like nervously been like, maybe we can like figure this out and like we can do something about it, like, because I was always just doing this like with my hair in school. I don't know why. So we dated for a solid week, a whole 7 days. We did not talk on the phone because David did not have a phone. I went to school that Monday because it was like a Friday that we did this asking out thing. Didn't talk the whole weekend. I went to school on Monday and we had lunch together. It was the most magical and romantic day of my life because he shared his Pop-Tarts with me. And I don't think I've had a romantic gesture quite like that. Flowers mean nothing. Chocolates mean nothing. Give me a Pop-Tart if you want my heart. Just saying. And it was just the most romantical thing that ever happened because he gave me Pop-Tarts. And I was like, yeah, we're gonna get married because he gave me Pop-Tarts. And then I got sick and I spent the rest of the week not going to school. And then that weekend, like the exact week later on Friday, I got a voicemail from Jessica saying that David had flagged her down at school and wanted me to know that he was breaking up with me because he never actually liked me and that he didn't realize I was his girlfriend and that he thought I was asking to be best friends. So when it occurred to him that I was his girlfriend, he didn't want to date me because he didn't actually like me and he didn't want to date me and blah, blah, blah. Well, I went back to school after that, after having told all of my friends that weekend. All of my friends cold shouldered him so hard. And I was so mad that of all the people he chose to flag me down about it, it was Jessica. A few years later, when I was a sophomore in high school, I got a hold of David on Facebook for whatever reason, because I remember thinking it was funny that when I knew him when we were like 12, 13 years old, he was this little nerdy dude with, like a bowl haircut, and he always wore like just complete like solid colors, and they were always like bright and pastel, and he was just a little bit chubby and he was short. And then I saw pictures of him when we were like 16 again, and he had like really cool emo hair and he had piercings and he got really tall and he wore band t-shirts and like he was like my type of dude. My type of girl is actually still like that. Like I really like alternative looking girls with tattoos and piercings who wear a lot of black. Like I like, you know, alternative chicks. I remember thinking it was funny, and so I got back in contact with him and I actually brought it up to him. I was like, look, of all the people you would have asked to do this, why Jessica? Like I know that it's been like 3.5 years, but it's bugged me ever since and I gotta know. And he was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, what do you mean, what am I talking about? I'm talking about the fact that you told Jessica to dump me because you didn't like me and you didn't realize we were dating and blah blah blah. And he said, that's not what I told her at all. And he said, yeah, I told her that I was breaking up with you because even though I thought that you were like really great, you were my best friend and I was worried about losing you if we were ever together for a long time and it didn't work out. So I thought it would be better to break up after a week because I wanted to keep you as my best friend. And I found that really ironic because I never spoke to him again the entire time we were in school. It turns out Jessica was just full of crap. That's not what he told Jessica at all. And he was like, nah, you were my best friend and I was really sad that we weren't friends anymore after that. Turns out Jessica's just a Sorry if I seemed like I was rambling throughout this entire video. I wanted to kind of try to get it out as fast as possible because I have to post this on Monday and it is currently Wednesday. I have company coming over this weekend, so I literally only have tonight, tomorrow, and Friday to edit this. And I was really hoping that it would turn out a little bit shorter than my last video, considering it was literally over 30 minutes long because I'm extra. If you liked this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, show everybody that you liked it, leave a comment, and talk to me. I love interaction with you guys. If you have not already subscribed to my channel, please click subscribe. Let's grow the family. As of right now, I have 26. I would like to make a lot more than 26 friends. Come join the party. We will do a dance. As I said in the beginning of this video, please follow me on my Twitter that is linked below. Follow me on my Instagram. I'm getting better at taking pictures. If you like random, artsy, angsty BS, then follow me on my Tumblr and my Musical.ly. All of those are linked below. Please go check them out and follow me on my social media. Remember not to throw scissors at people just because they make you mad, and never, ever, ever hit cars in the parking lot on the way to a second date. I love you. Goodbye.